Welcome, heathens and witches, to Magic in Media, a new show that we're trying to do that's just kind of looking at movies or like TV shows or whatever, and kind of delving into the magical systems, both in universe as well as how those magical systems are influenced by or represent or otherwise they connected to things out of universe, like in real life.
Or simply how they would work if you were to be doing those magics in real life.
Yeah, in universe logic.
Yeah.
So I'm John Norgrove, this is Julie Norgrove, and we're just going to dive right into it. Our first Magic in Media, because 'tis the season, we decided to do Jingle Jangle, which is available on Netflix here in the United States for us, and came out a couple of years ago.
In 2020.
Yeah, so 2 years ago in 2020.
Yeah. So what is Jingle Jangle about?
So a brief synopsis of Jingle Jangle is essentially like the whole movie takes place in a town square, but essentially in this small town, there's this inventor, Mr. Jangle.
Yes, Geronicus Jangle.
Geronicus Jangle. There's this inventor, Geronicus Jangle, and he's got like a wife and a daughter, and he's like a fantastical inventor who makes all sort of wondrous creations. And he has an assistant who works for him, who is impatient. His assistant's name is Gustafson. Gustafson is like impatient about getting, like, it's Christmas Day, bro. Relax. But he's impatient, and so Geronicus invents like a little bullfighter like action figure.
Don Juan Diego.
Yeah, Don Juan Diego. That's like given full animus. Like, he essentially creates life, mechanical life with consciousness, and this life is not gangster. Don Juan is a bit of a monster, and so he convinces Gustafson to steal Geronicus's Book of Inventions, his magical tome, for a lack of better words, and then run away with it. And so they do that, and then in a throwaway piece of dialogue, we learn that I guess Geronicus couldn't prove that it was his and that his shit got stolen, and then slam cut to 20 years later, and Geronicus owns a pawn shop in his old place and can't pay his bills and is being chased after by a sassy post lady, and Gustafson is now like talk of the town, best inventor of all time, 10 years in a row, best inventor or best toy inventor or whatever the heck, and
it's like 25 years or something. It's like an absurd time frame.
Yeah. It's some magically long distance like that.
Yeah.
Basically, Geronicus's granddaughter is like, I want to go hang out with my grandpa, who's a magical inventor man, because I love inventing stuff. So I'm going to do that. So she goes to live with her grandpa, who does not want her to begin with, and she essentially just meddles her way into his life. Enough that when Gustafson has ran out of stolen ideas and trying to invent his own thing and can't do it, he tries to steal a new thing from Geronicus that's like powered by imagination or belief or whatever, and we'll get into all the details on that later. But and so Gustafson is like, I'm gonna steal this, and so he steals it, and the granddaughter Journey teams up with the assistant, like Geronicus's like non-real assistant. There's just like
who
a little
is
boy,
also a kid.
Yeah, there's like a little boy who hangs out at Geronicus's shop and is like, I'm your apprentice, like inventor or whatever. And Edison. And Geronicus is like, no, you're not. What are you doing here? Where are your parents? Please leave me alone. The whole movie, right? And so Edison and Journey decide, like, all right, well, since like the magical MacGuffin got stolen, we should try and steal it back. So they break into Gustafson's, go through a pretty absurd series of vignettes of adventure, having to like fight off security guards.
It's very Scooby-Doo.
It's very Scooby-Doo.
It's very Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, it is. And so they end up like saving the day and like rushing, like returning home with it. And Geronicus is like, oh my god, it's saved. Like, we can do inventions again. Everything's hopeful. And then Gustafson shows up with the police and it's just like, this guy stole my toy. like, arrest him. And Journey is like, guess what? Come to find out, no, he didn't. Here's proof that he didn't. And then Gustafson essentially, like, the cops are like, all right, Gustafson's going to jail, right? Like, handcuffs, jail time. And Geronicus put salt and lemon juice on the wound of failing and being arrested is also, one, literally turns off Don Juan and is like, this guy needs to be reprogrammed, which means that he created life, it lived fine for 25 years, and then he terminated it to rebuild it because it was a little bit of an asshole, which is dark. And then also, he's like, police, hold on a second, Gustafson, if you had just been patient and come downstairs to have dinner with us, you would have received your Christmas present from that day that you stole all that stuff. And it's like the part he needs to finish his invention. And Geronicus is like, I would have shared everything with you. You would have been my apprentice. We would have risen to the top together. But, you know, you chose not to. So, good luck in jail, bro. And then he gets dragged off. End of movie.
Yeah.
Which is like the darkest ending. Every time, I'm always like, oh, man. So mean.
Well,
just
they
cold-hearted.
I mean,
Gustafson deserves it. Don't get me wrong.
We
Gustafson
do touch back
was
in
very
with the
like burn the
narrators
children
at the very end
but,
to learn like.
Oh yeah,
learn the identity.
There's
things,
like a beginning, middle, end narration point that's sort of similar to a Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Where it's like an older citizen reading a book to younger citizens. Or whatever, an adult reading a book to their kids or grandkids or some nonsense. So like we've got that sort of like vignette around it, and also throughout this entire movie there are, and I cannot stress this enough, amazing musical numbers. Just these like dance routines and beautiful musical numbers. The music is awesome in this movie.
The costuming is fantastic.
Costuming is like chef's kiss. So good.
You know what's interesting is this movie was on when we had family over for Christmas, and we were talking about, is it a Christmas movie? And it's kind of not necessarily a Christmas movie.
I mean, the two main A part and
Christmas,
B part of the movie, the whole movie takes place
and
during
it takes
Christmas.
place during Christmas, but it's not overly Christmas.
There's no Santa in the movie. There's
no like, it's the Christmas spirit. There's none of that.
Yeah, there's no like Christmas magic or whatever in the movie. But like obviously the like narrator vignettes take place like literally next to a Christmas tree, so like that's definitely Christmassy. And this town that Jingle Jangle takes place in, and like the betrayal and stealing happens
on Christmas.
Like on Christmas.
Yeah.
And then the daughter arriving and like stealing the thing back and all that essentially takes place right before Christmas. And the reason why I say right before Christmas is that Gustafson is actively trying to promote his newest toy that's like it's gonna be on every kid's Christmas list. Yeah. And Christmas, I believe, exists in this universe. Like the word Christmas.
The word Christmas,
like
and
the word and idea
that you
of
give
Christmas.
Gifts for Christmas
exists,
also exists.
Yeah.
But beyond that, we're not really sure what.
There's no talk of Santa.
Happened.
And there's no talk of like Christmas magic, and there's no talk of religion either.
Yeah, no religion.
Other than the fact that there's a Christmas tree present, which I mean, like technically is a pagan tree anyway. They could be celebrating Yule. Frankly, they could be celebrating like Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or some make believe like in universe facsimile for Christmas, and there's no way we would know. Right? They don't, it's really not the point, but the movie clearly takes place in Christmas time, and it's very Christmassy of, like nature, character, right? It had undertones of Christmas, as it were, within the movie. But, I mean, essentially, that's the plot of Jingle Jangle, if you haven't seen it in a while, or anything like that. I will retroactively put a spoiler alert at the front of it. I forgot to say something about that, but that's fine. It's been out for like 2 years, guys. Come on.
Yeah, it's been out for a while. So, all right, let's talk about the magic in this. So, like, the very first thing that we get magically is like literally opening scene with the narrator. It's the little girl, and she's being read to by her grandmother, like, and her brother is there, like her slightly older brother.
Well, her grandma's not in the scene yet. She's
Yeah,
essentially this little girl is at the fireplace.
Yeah, so little girl's at the fireplace, and she can see images dancing in the fire.
Yeah,
and
like
he's
fae,
like, "Oh,
sprites.
what do you see?" And she's like, "I could really see it this time." And he's like, rolls eyes, sure.
Yeah, the little brother's just like, nah.
Yeah, so immediately we're getting a little dose of magic, and seeing images in a fire in the way that she did can be construed in a couple of ways. She could be looking at like a fae or like a fire spirit kind of a thing, like an elemental.
It could be like a fire sprite thing. It could also be like whatever, like looking into the future to see a thing.
It could also be
looking into the
prophetic.
past, so it could be prophetic or like whatever, historical research. I don't know what that word is.
Historical research?
She's looking into the past.
She's just
Historical
getting a
research,
vision.
bro.
She's getting a vision.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, there you go. Great job.
Whatever.
So that's the very first dose of magic that we get.
Yeah, and it's like a little pop, and it's just her. And I mean, like the audience sees it. It's not like we just have to like take this girl at her word or something. But like the brother clearly doesn't see it, and then the grandma shows up, and it's just like, all right, like it's time to go to bed. And they're like, read us a book, and she's like, I'll read you a book, but it's gonna be like an especially dope book. And they're like, okay. And then she like unlocks a book that is essentially all of the clockworks everywhere all the time.
It's really cool.
She's just like, choo, 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 choo,
but also like not a very practical book.
Oh my
reading.
god. No,
yeah.
You get like a grain of sand in there, never opening that book again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So after that, most of the rest of the magic is actually fairly the same across everything. So Jeronicus Jangle are like mostly main character. So we see him being able to write mathematical equations in the air and with just like handwriting. And it's kind of similar to like fire. It's like orangey in
it's
color.
like sparks, and it's sort of like a little moving or whatever. He's essentially able to like
imagine Tony Stark as Iron Man writing stuff in the air, and that's basically what it's going to look like.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's like skywriting. Do you remember Ghost Rider?
Yeah,
it's like Ghost Rider
Yeah.
if you were like alive in the 90s to watch that.
Yeah, and
80s
it's clear in the
heck.
way that he writes these mathematical equations in the air that he can actually see them. They're not just like a placeholder for him doing
he's not just doing like finger wavy hand math and then like got it. Mm-hmm. Right, and the audience is visualizing a thing. He is like practically seeing, and it's not like he's just writing a couple of equations. It's like full math meme. He's like pew, writing some equations.
Yeah.
And there's like equations floating around him and like schematics and shit.
Yeah.
Right? So he's able to like essentially like project three-dimensional images into space to allow him to do like advanced math meme style inventing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. He also has his book of inventions, which really, I mean, it's just a grimoire. Guys.
Oh,
that's a book of shadows. That is a spell book.
Whole ass a spell book, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like it's where all the stuff is. When it's gone, he's lost his power. It grants somebody else who uses the power to do inventions who clearly doesn't understand.
Well, the book isn't really granting people power, but if you understand how to read the book, you can replicate the spells, which is why it's especially like a spell book, like a grimoire.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the book itself is not
the granting of. Yeah, it's not that the book's sentient. It's just that, like, it's granting somebody the ability to create these inventions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Insofar as creating these inventions is the, like, power.
Yeah.
Inventions is the power base of this universe.
Yeah.
Right?
And,
it's essentially a universe of technomancy.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Right? But it's kind of like steampunk technomancy, but I don't want to say that because nobody's doing nothing with steam, and ain't nobody got no fucking silly top hats, and it ain't like I know steampunk has like a bunch of people have like emotions about steampunk. It's not like steampunk. It's just like cogs and shit.
It's like
punk.
clockwork technomancy.
Yeah. Every time I say the word clockwork, I have to physically resist saying the word orange afterwards. But it's like clockwork mancy.
Yeah, it is like clockwork type stuff.
Yeah.
He also uses machines a lot. So in order to make the toy bullfighter Don Juan Diego, he uses a machine to make a serum that he then drops into the toy that animates the toy.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting because, as we mentioned before, the toy is sentient. It has a distinct personality and perhaps even a soul. Don Juan Diego, in fact, says that he is one of a kind.
Yeah, he has beef with the very idea that he's simply the first of millions of these Don Juan Diego toys, as well as he's able to go against his creator. I mean, other than the go against his creator part, the whole Don Juan Diego thing is very adjacent to like golems in the mystical Jewish faith kind of golems, where there's like this essence of life added to them, like a physical serum that's added to them. It's also very similar to voodoo zombies, where they're adding animus to a thing, but without the weird stealing souls bit.
Yeah, and
there's something dark about it,
like a ceremonial magical servitor, like a spirit that you create to do a certain thing. Only
like a tulpa.
Yeah, like a tulpa.
If you want to think about it in a more modern interpretation of magic, it's very much a tulpa. Which we just recently watched a month ago, that movie where that guy's a tulpa, which is, oh my god, such a good flipping movie.
So that's a really interesting one, and we actually don't get a lot more information about this toy bullfighter, but the best as we can tell, it looks like he's like a golem or like a zombie, really more like a golem, because he is mechanical in a sense, and he's being infused with a spirit.
He's non-living material infused with animus.
Yeah.
Right, which is the most like a golem. It's more like a golem than it is even like a Frankenstein's monster or a tulpa or something to that extent. But it is essentially like an almost throwaway scene. I mean, it's super important to the plot or whatever, but it's essentially, he's like, oh, I got the thing in the mail that I needed, and plugs it into his machine, and his machine's just like, bing, bang, click, clack, boom, here's a drop of some liquid, and he puts it in the thing, and this thing's just like, I'm alive and have a soul now. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
This guy's like a living god.
And then immediately this toy decides to stage a mutiny.
At first you're like,
away.
Animus. And then it's like, I can be the only one. And you're like, too much animus. This thing's whole soul.
Yeah.
Weird bit, bro.
Yeah, so that's the toy, and we're told that Geronicus wasn't able to replicate it, which adds more interestingness to its animus.
It's like theoretically he has the machine still, but the book was stolen, which really again lends more to this book being like a spell book, where it's like he had all the physical technology there, but he didn't have the book that gave him whatever hand symbols or words or magical extra bits he needed to cause animus to happen again. Yeah,
so after the loss of Don Juan and his book, the narrator says that the magic escaped Geronicus.
Yeah.
And we learned that Geronicus vowed to never make anything again. Mm-hmm. So he's basically like, not only can I not do magic without my grimoire, but I'm never going to do magic again because of this.
Yeah. However, he was so betrayed by his own creation. I mean, that little interaction between Geronicus and Don Juan is very Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, right? It's very informed by that logic.
Yeah. Now, even though we understand that he said that he's never going to do magic again, we still see him do sort of magical stuff. So, there's a point where a bill collector comes in
the bank
and wants some money,
just take his
and
shop.
He makes a calculation on this machine about his whatever invention he's working on. And what he says when he's making this calculation on this weird little typewriter machine is to take the circumference of spectacular and divide it by the second derivative of sensational.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like, again, math magic. Absolutely.
I mean, it's totally math magic.
Technomancy.
He's doing straight technomancy, but he's only using it in its, like, raw calculative form to figure out specifically how long it would take for him to, like, raise the money to pay off whatever debt he owes to the bank, and it's something like 1,000 years.
Yeah,
is like the mechanical output of this like machine, and like the machine's fanciful. I mean, you have to think about like everything in this world is very like over the toply fanciful.
Yeah.
So the machine is like this like sphere with a bunch of digits around it. So he's saying these lines and doing this sort of like around kind of typing. You know, it's like an it's like one of those like code breaker style machines, you know?
Yeah.
Mechanical stuff.
Yeah. And we also learn that he has a pen that has magical ink that can only be seen under a specific lamp.
Yeah.
This
Which
is
just
a little less
essentially
magical. Like we
just
definitely have
invisible ink.
mundane stuff like that currently.
Yeah.
But that's what we see from Geronicus.
That's the sort of magical practices that we understand from Geronicus, at least for most of the movie until the very end.
Yeah.
Right? With his granddaughter Journey, we see very similar magic, almost as though this sort of like technomancy, like mechanomancy, follows a family line.
Yeah, and
right.
she
It's also implied in the beginning of the movie. Sorry, that his daughter also invented, although we never see her do any inventing. He seems very like proud of her and like gives her like inventor goggles and shit.
Yeah,
So
but we don't see her do any inventing or any magical stuff.
Yeah.
Now Journey, though, his granddaughter, she can also do air math.
Yeah,
like
she can also math meme like Geronicus, but it's like a cool blue.
Like an icy blue.
Yeah, like an icy blue color. Early on in their interactions, Journey like does some air magic, and Geronicus seems to be able to see her math magic in the air.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can see that, and she's like, can't you? And he's like, no, I've lost the sight. But it's kind of implied, I don't know, the way that the scene is shot and the like delivery, the timing of the delivery of the lines, from my perspective, indicates that like he can still see it, although maybe it's more faint than before.
Yeah.
But it's almost as though he's like actively rejecting the magic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's just like, no, I can't see it anymore. It betrays me, so I'm not going to do it. You know, like he was just like burned one time by the magic, and so
he's
he's like,
just being booty bizzled.
Yeah, he's just like, he's just sassed up. Yeah.
Yeah. And much like her grandfather, she also does calculations using terms like infinity. And in one particular
spectacular and
in one particular scene, she says that the square root of impossible is possible in me.
Yeah.
And which is like great for the movie, but is
it's like a line from a song, but it also like has pretty obvious sort of, so like the square root of a thing is like its base, right?
Yeah.
And it, like the sort of like simplified like base of it, and she's essentially saying that like to do an impossible thing, like I can do an impossible thing if I set my mind to do it.
Yeah, which is pretty
it's
like
just straight line intention magic.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, she's just
intentions
mad.
Right there.
She's using like math magic and like mechanical techno magic, essentially powered by just like raw confidence,
which is chaos magic.
Yeah, she's just like raw confidencing her way into like pretty powerful inventor magic.
Yeah.
And also, like, we saw him doing this when he was like a husband with a daughter in his 30s or something.
Yeah.
Right? And this girl is like 12. And she is just like too powerful.
She's probably younger than that.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I have no clue how old she was. I was thinking
she's probably supposed to be 8 to 10.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I assume that she was older than the boy inventor.
They both seem like they were trying to make them pretty young.
Like, really young?
Yeah. Yeah, but, the square root of impossible is possible in me. That's a pretty hefty, like, intention mantra.
Yeah, that's
When
just
you think
mad
about that.
in like intention magic, chaos magic, just like deep diving into that.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's even further proved by her bringing to life the machine Buddy 3000, just using her adventure powers because she believes.
Essentially, Geronicus had created... So, Geronicus made Don Juan, which is where he was able to essentially create the essence of life and imbue that life and animus into an inanimate object. With that failure having happened, he invented a second animus doll, the Buddy 3000, which is supposed to be both more powerful and less sentient.
Yeah.
Right? It can still, like, do stuff and talk to you and shit, but it is not animated with that same sort of, like, raw life, which, to me, indicates that there was a period of time post... also, the grandmother, Geronicus's wife, the throwaway line, she left him or died or something.
She died.
Yeah, she died.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there was this brief window of time after Don Juan ran away / was stolen, where Geronicus was trying to invent again, and the way Don Juan burned him changed the way that he approached creating this sort of like living golem, right?
Yeah.
This like puppet for children to play with, this toy. So Buddy is powered in like a very different way. He's not powered with the raw animus of life like Don Juan was.
Yeah.
He's powered with essentially belief that magic is possible.
Yeah.
Which is a whole different side of just like harnessing intention from its users in order to give animus to its machinery. The pure fucking math chaos magic.
Yeah,
of this
well, and
is
this is
insane.
kind of where that like Christmas magic stuff kind of plays in, because the
knows how that works?
Assistant to Geronicus, the young boy, is like, oh, I didn't think that worked, and the robot says that it's always worked, and they just needed somebody to believe.
Yeah.
And then immediately Journey starts flying. She literally starts floating.
Oh, so... yeah. Well, that's the thing, though, is
So
that Buddy 3000, because Buddy 3000 is powered pure, like, by raw faith.
By raw intention.
By raw intention. By
all
belief.
The willpower.
And because we know that the square root of impossible is possible in people, this animus robot, Buddy 3000, appears to be capable of essentially doing anything. That's why it can like make people magically float and fly, as it does several times in the movie.
Yeah.
As well as exert various degrees of no strength and like way too much strength. Seems to be based around the idea that because it's converting raw belief, like intention magic, into its ability to function, it is able to act as like some sort of an intention filter, almost like a wand for the uninitiated, in order to allow them to do magical things, like fly, or like play with a toy that shouldn't be able to move on its own, but does. So like, from the way that I kind of interpret, having seen this movie several times, what Buddy 3000 does, Buddy 3000 is sort of like an automated wand.
Yeah.
Right? It's like an automated magical device that converts your faith that the magic exists into power, and then converts your intentions and beliefs and, like, wants, for a lack of better words, into action. Whether that action is to, like, save them during an escape scene, or, like, grant humans the ability to float and fly without there being any of the, like, upsetting side effects of zero gravity in a gravity-filled place. Because it can also selectively choose. You see at the end of the movie, when it's like, there are people standing around, and, like, that guy starts flying, and then that guy starts flying, because they said, hey, come up here, and then this guy starts being able to float. So it's able to selectively, it's not just, like, creating a field of anti-gravity, right? It's actively converting, like, motion, because you see them, like, doing swimming, which you wouldn't be able to swim through the air like that, but, again, because the flight that they're experiencing isn't just raw anti-gravity, but, like, the magical intention of the desire to fly.
Yeah.
Right? They're able to, like, propel themselves based on what they would understand as swimming, because that's what humans get when you're trying to propel yourself through, like, a medium. right? So it's really interesting. The sort of strange conceptual argument posited in this, where like he created true life and that life betrayed him, and so his second attempt at life, he never like his second attempt at animating a machine was to not give it life, but to simply build something that's animated purely on the belief that it stays animated, which means as soon as you stop believing in it being animated, it stops working.
Yeah.
Right? Which gives you like the infinite safety measure of it being like, well, honestly, more like a zombie.
Yeah.
First, he built a golem, but that golem, like Frankenstein's monster, had true life, had a soul, and betrayed him. So he went back to the drawing board and built a zombie, a thing that can only obey.
Yeah.
Like, that is not at all the intention the movie is trying to make. I have complete faith that I am reading probably too much into it, but from my perspective, and having seen this movie like many, many times, because I really, really love this movie, I believe that he figured out how to make life, it betrayed him, and he was like, all right, well, how about next time? No soul.
Instead of making a friend, let's make a dog.
Yeah. Well,
Basically.
dogs are friends. Like, let's make a tool.
Yeah, well, instead of making a person,
and
let's make a dog.
there are a couple like throwaway lines about him talking about inventions as tools and things like that. It's really dark.
Yeah.
It's like this weird undertone that I like the first time or two I saw the movie, I didn't really think that much of that. I was more concerned, like more interested in just like the sort of like pure magical nature of this like techno magic and like math magic and stuff. And the first time we watched it this year, I was like, oh no! No, what did I just understand? You know, because like learning things is awful sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion on why Buddy 3000 is animated in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Than what Don Juan is
Yeah.
animated in.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. And also, apparently only the Geronicus, the Jangle family, seems to have this magic.
Yes. And that brings us to Gustafsson.
Yeah, Gustafsson.
Gustafsson, who used Dronicus' inventor book and ran away with Don Juan Diego and was able to recreate the toys and inventions in there. But we learn throughout the time of the movie that he's only able to recreate what's in the book. He's never been able to create anything himself.
Yeah, the beginning of the
magic.
story, he had an invention that he could not figure out. And at the end of the story, that invention still had not been figured out, even though it had been like 25 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So it really indicates, and it's not that, I mean, like maybe Gustafsson was just a bad inventor. Like, that's probably the case.
Yeah.
But it appears that he not only never understood or had the magic that allows them to do what they do to invent such like fantastical things, but it seems like he wasn't even aware that it existed, right? The way Gustafsson talks about it, they're just like trinkets to be built. It's cogs and measurements and science and you know, like panels and shit. And that's fine. That still builds a toy that works, because obviously the Jangle family doesn't like only build magical devices. They build regular ass toys for kids, right? But the thing that makes them so good at it is this like math magic.
Is this inventor
magic. And it seems like Gustafsson was never aware of that, which is kind of absurd because you see Geronicus using his magic pretty openly.
Yeah.
But nobody else can see it. So nobody else thinks anything of it. It's sort of, it's that, like, you hear this in a lot of, like, paranormal teen rom-coms, where it's, like, the uninitiated normies, their eyes just, like, glance past a werewolf, and they just think that it was a man in a big coat. That kind of like, unless you know, you just sort of fill in the blanks and ignore it.
Because your mind's like, nope.
Yeah, because it's just too unbelievable. So, like, Gustafsson, like, really never even kind of got that magic existed.
Yeah, which is funny because in one of his songs, the lyric says that you can't spell magic without me.
Yeah. Oh, he also in that same song he has a line where he says something like you can't spell magic without a G. because like his whole
Yeah.
thing is like a big G logo because his name's Gustafson, so it starts with a G. So it's funny that he talks about the magic of invention and the magic of toys in his like song, in both of his songs.
But he's able to replicate but not create.
Yeah. Well, it's like he just doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Right? Like for him the magic is the invention itself. It's so magical. It's like if all of a sudden I presented you with a new iPhone and it has 5-day battery life, you're like, okay, that's the coolest thing ever. Magic. Yeah. But like you just don't understand the technology. So like the way that he talks about it, it seems like he is using the word magic in like a layman way. And he doesn't understand that there's like true magic,
like actual magic
on the subsurface of what's happening, like essentially in this reality.
Yeah.
Right? And only the Jangles seem to be capable of understanding that, with the small exception.
Well, not just understanding, manipulating,
using and benefiting from, with the exception of the backup dancers for the male lady. Because they may or may not have the power of fucking human teleportation. Because those dudes show up everywhere.
They are everywhere.
They might legit have the power to teleport and not sharing it with everybody else. Also, they're like a nice little like tri-coven. Yeah. Because there's 3 of them. There's like a lot of magical symbolism in this movie.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very like the whole thing is very like belief and impossible, and that like the language they use for the magic feels very fitting in universe and different than the things we've used and talked about and seen before in other universes. It's like they invented a magical system. Like in this universe, the magical system is essentially a function of controlling the impossible. They're just chaos wizards, but they use like math and engineering
which
to
also makes
access
them
the chaos
wizards.
Yeah, they're like technomancers powered by chaos. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic movie.
And we don't have an episode about chaos magic, although we will eventually have one. But we do have an episode about technomancy. So if you're interested in hearing more about what technomancy is, check that episode out.
Yeah, of the podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, these guys are definitely technomancers. They're doing the chaos magic, and I think that really the chaos magic is the main through line here, because chaos magic essentially means that you are out of the chaos that is reality, pulling the result out that you want.
Yeah.
You're understanding how to manipulate the very forces of nature.
Yeah, you're just raw dogging stuff out of nothingness.
Yeah.
Right? Or more accurately, ordered stuff out of unordered stuff, which is probably significantly more complex.
Yeah.
And
they're using the medium of technomagic for most of it.
They're using the medium
and then
of
it's
math
also,
to explore it, and technomagic to act as wands. So like under this logic, their spells, their spellcraft is mathematics, and their wands or vestments, their material good that allows the magic to happen, is technology, specifically clockwork style technology, and the magic, it's all intention and like chaos based, but they're accessing this through, they're like expressing it through, instead of like saying a spell, they're doing math in the air, and instead of waving a stick, they're like building a clock.
And instead of saying some sort of spell word, some sort of chant, they're saying the square root of impossible is possible in me.
Yeah, well, they have, like, a chant, and that's them essentially just saying the math out loud. Yeah. Right? It's like we've all been children and done math where you're like 23 divided by 15. But, they're just, like, saying the math out loud. That's a ridiculous math equation for a child to do, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So they're like saying the math out loud, but sometimes they don't say the math out loud and they do it silently in their head, which is part of that whole order of intention. Thinking a thing, writing a thing down, saying a thing, chanting a thing, inscribing a thing. Like the more involved in that you are. It's also, I feel like there's like a couple of throwaway looks when you're seeing Don Juan, and maybe one or two when you're seeing Buddy 3000, where it appears that they're inscribing math on the metal of the like cogs in their machines. But that might also just be like stylized stuff. It's inside of a bunch of moving parts, so I don't know like a hundo passundo on that bit.
Yeah.
But no, it's very interesting. Like before we shut this down, because it has been a while, what do you think of the magical system in Jingle Jangle? Did you think about Jingle Jangle this way before you saw the movie, or not before you saw the movie, but like after you saw the movie, was your initial look at like, oh my god, this magical system's interesting, or was it mostly about the outfits and the music? Because it was mostly about the outfits and the music for me. And then the magic came the second, third, fourth, and fifth times that I've seen this movie. I've probably seen this movie like 8 times now.
Yeah, we've seen it.
We've seen it like so many times. I love this movie genuinely.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think of Jingle Jangle? What do you think of our interpretation of the magical systems in Jingle Jangle? Do you disagree, or do you think that Geronicus might have been burned by creating life, and so instead created a slave is not technically an incorrect term. So
Yeah. And what do you want to hear us explain next?
yeah, do you have any magical movies you would like us to delve deeper into? Because this is going to stay its own little magic in media thing. I have to make a graphic for it. I mean, you've already seen it because you're watching this, but I don't have one yet as we're recording it because I was doing something else today. Yeah, either way, I've been John Norgrove. This has been Julie Norgrove. This has been Magic in Media. Don't forget to like this video, comment below what you thought about Jingle Jangle, subscribe to this channel, share it with other people, ring a bell or whatever. Do all of the things that they say you're supposed to do. And we will catch you guys next time for more Magic in Media. Stay magical, folks.
Yeah.